Now let's dive deep into this big LGBTQ story for today. I'm Ty Hauser. Let's queer up the USA view. The proposed Trump administration budget cuts Lifeline for LGBTQ youth. In a move sparking national outrage, the Trump administration has proposed eliminating federal funding for a vital lifeline for queer youth in crisis. A leaked draft budget obtained by the Washington Post reveals plans to cut all funding for the 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline's LGBTQ+ youth specialized services, effective October 1st, 2025. This program, which provides identity-affirming crisis support for queer and trans young people, is currently funded through the Department of Health and Human Services. Jaymes Black, CEO of the Trevor Project, didn't mince words. Quote, "Suicide prevention is about risk, not identity. Ending the 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline's LGBTQ+ youth specialized services will not just strip away access from millions of LGBTQ+ kids and teens, it will put their lives at risk." Black reminded viewers that these services were implemented under a Republican administration and had broad bipartisan support. The statistics are very sobering. Every 45 seconds, a queer youth in the U.S. attempts suicide. Over 1.8 million queer and trans young people seriously consider it each year. The specialized services have already reached more than 1.2 million people. But the political climate clearly matters. The Trevor Project saw a 33% spike in crisis contacts on the day of Trump's inauguration, and a staggering 700% increase the day after the 2016 election. Queer News Tonight reminds you that help is still there. Call or text 988, and the Trevor Project has help 24 hours a day at 866-488-7386. This is definitely a tragedy, assuming that it goes through. But what it does show us, that we see time and time again, the Trump administration does not care about us. Whether we're young, whether we're old, whether we're positive, whether we're just existing, is a problem for this administration.
Yeah, it's another heartless and hateful move by Trump and company, and no doubt under the guidance of the Heritage Foundation, aka the Fourth Reich. This is terrible stuff. It really is.
You know, we've done enough stories on the Trevor Project and our LGBTQ youth and suicide and those high percentages, and it just it just brings it to hearten that who do they have to go to? And I'm thinking about, I was just at the biomedical conference in Atlanta, and they had a huge youth turnout, LGBTQ youth, and their message is stand up and act out. And it's like, and that's what I think we need to continue to do, to educate and bring continual awareness to mental assistance for people that need that.
What I'm going to say here ties into what you're saying. I can remember, and I am that old, in the late 80s, early 90s, I was living in St. Louis. And at that time, when the AIDS crisis was beginning, I was part of the first group of people that organized the local AIDS organization, St. Louis Effort for AIDS, EFA. And one of the programs in that group was a suicide hotline. Now, the suicide hotline was only available for a handful of hours each day, but we had it. And at that point, we were self-funded, meaning that we went to the gay community. We're just going to have to go back to those days, unfortunately. And with all the wealth that the LGBT community claims to have, with with all the billionaires and gazillionaires and rock stars and successful entrepreneurs and whatever else, and YouTubers, which I don't get, but I think we're just going to have to start insulating ourselves and being it's not that we don't invite the community outside of the LGBTQ. We do invite our allies. We do talk to corporations. But we have to start going back to the old days of not assuming that money's going to be there.
Right.
And we're going to have to be self-insulated, and we're going to have to be self-protective and reach out to each other and quit bitching and fighting like RuPaul's drag queens, and because it happens in the community, we're not always the best to ourselves.
Right.
And I think at this point, we're going to have a family reunion and just say, look, we're family. We may not like each other 24/7. We got to survive.
Yeah,
we got to take care of ourselves.
Yeah, back to the ACT UP days and the Queer Nation days, when there was outrage and protest and making sure we had our voices.
And at the end of the day, this is the generation that's going to take over for us. And how many times have we sat around this table talking about how we need to get together and help lift them up? And
but we need to be more than just political. We need to also be financially responsible to ourselves. There's more to life outside of a pride parade and a gay bar.
Right.
We have to think about 24/7 what happens those other 360 days of the year.
Or you have those kinds of fundraisers in bars.
That's what I'm saying.
That's if that's where they're going, then you have fundraisers there.
It's really disheartening to me to see that right after the election, the spike in the need for that service.
Yeah.
I mean, that shows us a lot of things. That shows us that it really is a problem in the community, but it also shows us that kids are paying attention,
Right.
and they're being very, very affected by it.
Right.
I have a family member who couldn't stop crying as a 16-year-old the day after the election because she felt scared.
Yeah.
Well, before you say anything, I want to remind everybody the
Yes.
hotline number 866-488-7386. Please, if you don't write it down now, it's the Trevor Project. You can look it up online. Please take advantage of it. It's important.
Thank you for that. That is a big LGBTQ story for today. There's no other queer nonprofit media platform like this in the entire world. Support our LGBTQ stories by subscribing and sharing Queer News Tonight.